How does that
No,
look?
I'm not saying that. You get some sense that there's a handful of stocks.
Look at that. I mean, you could tie that to the market. Bang. Guy here joined as always by Tim Seymour. I see you got Pat Summerall and Mr. Madden in your background. Nothing to me said Thanksgiving like those cats at the Pontiac Silverdome on Thanksgiving Day.
And that right, and of course the big leg that invariably an offensive lineman needs to be chomping out of, caveman style. Who had a more calming voice in the world of broadcasting than a Pat Summerall? He just made you feel like, you know what, feel good about sitting in your couch for 4 hours here, people, because we're gonna hold your hand and we're gonna make this nice and gentle. And then of course Madden. I mean, they really revolutionized the way you watched and listened to a game. Obviously, Madden with the telestrator, all the antics. Love them. I mean, I don't know if they're the best, but they define Thanksgiving. It is that week. You probably can be watching some football on Reach TV somewhere in the airport here. So good times to be talking football. Good times to be talking turkey.
They're on the Mount Rushmore in terms of booth, pairings. I tell you what. Before with Madden it was Tom Brookshire, for you people old enough to remember.
Wow.
Brookie and Summerall. Now, what was
Rookie.
interesting about that duo,
Yeah.
Summerall, of course, played for the Giants, and Tom Brookshire was a defensive back for the hated Eagles, yet they paired up in a booth. They did a great job. I know that as a Giant fan, as do you, because they did all the Giant games.
Giants, and those were some lean years somewhere in there. I mean, a storied franchise. And look, in my life, the Giants have given me 4 Super Bowl victories and a 5th, at least, where they were at the bowl. So hard to complain, even though New York seems like a sports vacuum right now. I think we've all been sent to purgatory for whatever reasons. And I'm sure there's fans from every other city that are laughing and wonder why. But when I go best booth, I have to go straight to Monday Night Football. I have to go to Howard Cosell, Dandy Don. I mean, first of all, just the music, the show, the production, the yellow jackets. I mean, whatever it was. By the way, why did did they all go to Canton too? They all had the same jacket that NFL Hall of Famers get. I don't know why, but they all should be in the Hall of Fame because they made football exciting and dramatic. So I'm going Howard and the Monday Night Crew.
That Monday Night Crew, Dandy Don, I mean, when he started singing, I remember, So I'm in college. I don't know what year it was. Might have been my sophomore year. The Giants actually finally got a Monday night game. They were playing the then St. Louis Cardinals. And again, I mentioned on an earlier commercial break how I watched the 17-17 tie at the Superdome between Syracuse and Auburn. Well, the Giants and the Cardinals played one of the worst games in the history of the NFL on Monday Night Football. I watched it at the pub. Absolutely brutal. But I'll give you another booth real quick because I'll just do this for you. This is somewhat gratuitous, but I think you would say that Met booth of Gary Cohn, Keith, and Ron Darling. You would say that, I mean, they just dominate.
Well, our team doesn't dominate. So why not our booth? And yeah, I think the Mets going back for the last 25 years, maybe going back the last 50 years, because again, as you were in the 80s, you had Tim McCarver who was crushing it. If you get back into the 70s, you got a Ralph Kiner, Lindsey Nelson, Bob Murphy. I mean, that, again, defining the quirkiness of both the city, the team, the era. Love it. So best combo in markets, whether it's companies, whether it's investors. I mean, think about, again, folks that you associate together and they really set a standard. First of all, on the investor side, it's got to be Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger. I mean, they are the gold standard for long-term investing, for success, for a value set, for ethics, for America. And I think a lot of people could rattle them off. I don't know. Where do you want to go with this? Companies, leadership teams? What do you got?
So I'm going to give you leadership teams. How can you really go against? I mean, think about when Google started with Larry Page and Sergey Brin. I mean,
Brin.
Pretty unbelievable if you think about what they did, what they've gone on to do. I'll put my Sergey and Larry up against your Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger.
Well, it's funny because, when you look back on a team in hindsight and you see that there was like an understudy waiting to take the helm and you're like, holy cow, these guys were on the same team at the same time. I can't believe this is really the case. And, how Brett, your buddy, Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron sat for a couple of years and it looks genius. But again, the sequencing, how they did that. And you got to go to Apple. I mean, the fact that Steve Jobs and Tim Cook, to me, each one very different, a la Favre, we know how to pronounce his name, folks, and Aaron Rodgers. But which era was more successful? And most people would say Aaron Rodgers is the better quarterback, partly because he's in front of your face now and he's incredible. And he's a huge fan of Commercial Break. And when he's going through the airport, I know he can't, he bellies up, grabs a brew and sits and watches us. But Brett won 2 Super Bowls or 2 MVPs. And to the extent, did they win 2 Super Bowls? I don't even remember. Did they win back-to-backs? Or
I'm not sure, but I will give you these 2 quarterbacks that put in the Washington football team, Sonny Jurgensen and Billy Kilmer. Again,
wow.
For those old enough to remember, those guys played on the same team. 2 legendary quarterbacks on the same football team. And I'll give you this, just one more. Yeah. How about them apples? A New York Giant coaching staff where Tom Landry was on one side of the Giants bench and Vince Lombardi was on the other side. Think about that.
Look, I know as much about Sonny Jurgensen as I know about Sonny and Cher, and I think you have a case here where I'll tell you that Parcells coaching staff with Weiss and Peyton, I mean, like that might have been the greatest coaching staff of all time, other than Urban Meyer's coaching staff down at the University of Florida. By the way, tough times for my Gators right now too, but they will come back. I think, look, mega cap tech companies, it's been clear that it's a combination of not only the technology, but the vision and the leadership. Nobody comes close to Apple because, frankly, no company, I think, really comes close to Apple when you consider how they've transformed both how we interface with technology and really culturally what the Apple and the iPhone means to every single person walking around. Think about the Mark Zuckerberg, Sheryl Sandberg duo. Very powerful, absurdly successful, and has affected how we function in society, maybe in a different way. And I realize they've been easy targets of late, but I think it's, and then you go back to like the Jack Welch, GE lineups. I just think you have a case where you had management teams that were extraordinary. And in fact, that was really, the whole was more than the sum of the parts.
It's interesting you mentioned GE. Of course, McNerney, I believe, Jeff Immelt, and Bob Nardelli were part of that
Nardelli, big
coaching
fan. We're
tree.
Friends.
See what I did there? And here's my question to you. Is it good form to put up your tree before Thanksgiving, yes or no?
So look, until COVID, I had never done that as a rule, and was particularly insulted by seeing, the full-scale Christmas lineup in Home Depot, kind of the day Halloween ended. And in fact, it might have even this year gone up earlier. Last year, because we all had nothing better to do, my tree was up that Saturday after Thanksgiving, and I loved it. Honestly, I loved it, even though I historically waited till the second week of December. And I'm very particular about this. What happened was I ultimately saw that tree die early, and that's a problem. So did I peak too soon with my tree? And I feel like, that's something you got to be careful of. And, are you an artificial tree guy?
I'm a real tree guy. Real is important to me. You want that fresh cut smell in the foyer, as they say. But listen, we're out of time. This is Commercial Break. That is Tim Seymour. I'm Guy Adami. Catch us where, Tim, each weeknight?
Every night. Reach TV, 6 p.m. We'll see you then.